when it comes to looking at us in 2 or 3 years, I don't understand exactly what the long-term strategy here is. I just really don't. Now I'll tell you what I think they're trying to do. They're trying to just raise the floor.
Hello and welcome to Gangzilla here. My name is Ryan Sampson. That's our Jets beat writer Brian Costello live from Santa Clara and San Francisco out there, covering the Super Bowl for the New York Post as always. And that's Frankie Vittorini from U Stadium. On today's episode, we're going to cover the New York Jets hiring new offensive coordinator Frank Reich. They've made it official after a week-long search. After they let go of Tanner Engstrand, they now go on the decision of hiring Frank Reich as their offensive coordinator. We're going to discuss the Reich hiring, what we expect from this Jets offense, maybe some influence from Reich on the quarterback decision for the Jets. Everything will be discussed on today's episode. But before we get to any of that, I'll start with Kaz. How's it going out there in San Francisco, Santa Clara area?
A lot of buses, Ryan. A lot of buses. It's been a lot of. I had a tough time getting out here. First of all, I know people love hearing sports reporters complain about travel, so I'll save you the gory details. But my 8:50 a.m. flight took off at 5 p.m. So there's a lot of Newark Airport. Yeah, and there's a lot of buses out here. And did you see this breaking news that just came across our phones?
Oh, God, no.
Old friend Nate Hackett has been hired by old friend Mike LaFleur in Arizona.
You know what? That makes
Wow.
sense, though, right? Because of the LaFleur Hackett connection.
Because of the
Because
Matt LaFleur Hackett
Matt
connection?
LaFleur Hackett connection when he was there with in
Yes,
Green
I'm
Bay.
surprised. I didn't think Nate Hackett would get another offensive coordinator job.
I mean, LaFleur, you think is going to call the plays there, right? Wouldn't you think?
Yeah, I would think.
Yeah.
I mean, it's definitely interesting that he got another job and he gets another run out of it, considering how bad and ugly it ended for him here in New York. But look, it is that time of year now as the Super Bowl is about to happen here. The Jets do make a little bit of headlines here. We got word that they were doing in-person interviews with Darren Bevel, Greg Roman, and Frank Reich. Those seem to be the three finalists here. So, Kaz, Frankie, I'll start with you, Kaz. Your thoughts on Frank Reich ultimately getting the head coach, not the head coach, but the offensive coordinator job. Yeah.
You're getting ahead of yourself, huh?
Was
Ryan?
that a slip up maybe for this upcoming season?
You can say you had
Interim
it
head
first.
coach, maybe in a few weeks, right?
Yeah. No, look, I think the hard part, Ryan, right now is to sort of look at this move from like 30,000 feet and put aside the process of how they got here and kind of the surprise that we had with Engstrand. I think if you'd gone back to this time last year when Aaron Glenn was hired and he walked in the door and said, I'm going to call the defense and I'm bringing in this guy, younger guy who I knew from Detroit. He's going to be my defensive coordinator, but it's going to be, my defense. And then I'm going to hire Frank Reich, who's an experienced veteran offense coordinator. He's going to run the offense for me. So I don't even have to worry about the offense. My focus is going to be, getting this defense right. I think everyone would have applauded last year, but it's been so messy. 3-14, the way everything went with Wink Martindale, and then, Engstrand. I think right now everyone's kind of just, I don't know, just so jaundiced when it comes to this team that it's tough to evaluate it without all that context. But I think if you do yourself that, you say, how would I feel about this last year? I think Jets fans would have probably felt pretty good about this setup.
Yeah, look, Frankie, before I get your thoughts on Reich, this is, the Jets ultimately hiring another offensive coordinator, another year. They seem to churn through them so often now. It becomes a regular occurrence, seems, with this franchise. And ultimately, we discussed last week with the Engstrand, basically mutually parting ways with the Jets after 1 year. That was kind of messy at the end, like you said, Kaz, and you kind of have to put that into context here. Frank Reich's name was already being mentioned before Engstrand, got ultimately the boot out. It really wasn't a surprise when he got the job here. So Frankie, with Frank Reich coming in, a guy who was previously at Stanford as the interim head coach and then a senior advisor, what do you think about the move here?
Well, listen, ideally speaking, I would have liked us to have kept Tanner Engstrand as the OC and had Frank Reich there with Tanner. That would have been an ideal scenario for me. But again, would Frank Reich have came here if he wasn't the OC? And there's more money when you're the OC, obviously. So that obviously plays into it. I'll say this. If we had a roster that I felt really comfortable with and a quarterback, even a young kid that you can develop, I would feel more comfortable with this move. Frank Reich's got a ton of experience, and my father always taught me don't downplay experience. It always matters. You young guys, you think you know everything. Experience matters. That's why I learned so much from, Kaz over here. But but no, seriously, like there is nobody really better that was available post Tanner Engstrand than Frank Reich, specifically when you're talking about quarterbacks. He's worked with Andrew Luck. He had a great year with Carson Wentz in Indianapolis. He had a pretty good year with Jacoby Brissett. Obviously, in Carolina, things didn't go well, but he did help, Bryce Young a little bit early on. He's got some chops. He was in Philadelphia, play designing Doug Peterson.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's a lot to like about Frank Reich. He was a backup quarterback for years. I think Bill Polian said he was the best backup quarterback in NFL history. I think he coined that years ago. But at the end of the day, Ryan and Kaz, this guy is 64 years old. He's going to be the oldest offensive coordinator in the game. Aaron Glenn's 53. He's not some spring chicken either. I just don't understand what the long-term strategy is with this team when it comes to looking at us in 2 or 3 years. I don't understand exactly what the long-term strategy here is. I just really don't. Now, I'll tell you what I think they're trying to do. They're trying to just raise the floor. Aaron Glenn's got a ton of experience as a DC. Frank Reich, his resume speaks for itself. And I just think they're trying to get to a place where they're not an embarrassment in 2026 and they're able to put together a 5, 6, 7 win season like we all thought coming into this year. That's my opinion. I like the move because I like experience, but this guy may not be here in a few years, and we're not going to be ready until a few years anyway.
The point I make there, Frankie, though, like I get your point. The long-term plan is hard to see here, but I'm not sure how much NFL teams are doing long-term plans at this point. How many new offensive coordinators are there going to be this year?
A
There was
lot.
10,
There's
right?
going to be a
Or
lot.
11?
10 or
No,
11.
23 guys.
Holy.
From
Offensive
start to
coordinators, not head
finish.
coaches. Offensive
Oh,
coordinators. It's like
yeah.
22 or 23, something like that is the number. Like,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
insane. That's insane. Like that's crazy that there's that many. And some of them are because they got head coaching jobs and left,
Right.
like the Rams, Michael LaFleur. But a lot of them are because they just changed coaches. Like I feel like the churn in this league now, whether it's 10 head coaches or all these offensive coordinators, there aren't many NFL teams that are thinking 3, 4, 5 years down the road. It's about this year and maybe next year, and that's about it. So, like, I think your point is accurate, Frankie, but it's I don't have an issue with them trying to get respectable for 2026. I think that's the first step this organization kind of needs to make without, sacrificing the future. I'm not talking about, doing that, but I think I think that's kind of smart to do that.
Yeah, look, and this is going to be the 12th offensive coordinator and play caller for the Jets in a 16-year span, which is hard to believe. But like Haj just pointed out, there's a ton of turnover currently in the NFL. Ultimately, guys, I think the big question is something Frankie might have just hinted at. There's no quarterbacks like answer or solution right now on this roster. Fields looks like a casualty of the cap cut coming up here. Brady Cook's an undrafted free agent who did not look the part at all in limited time. Tyrod's a free agent. So, Kaz, the question is, with Frank Reich coming in, how much influence will he have with Darren Mougey and Aaron Glenn in picking potentially a veteran / also the rookie quarterback if they do decide to go that route as well in the draft?
I think you'll have a lot. You'd be nuts not to let your offensive coordinator have a lot of say in that pick or selection of a free agent. I do caution against what I've seen going on already today of like Jacoby Brissett, Carson Wentz. Like we always play this game. It doesn't usually work that way. Like I remember when I shouldn't probably get into names, but I can remember situations with coaches here where people talked about, oh, they're going to bring in this player because they were with them
Previous
in their
connections.
last stop.
Yeah.
And I knew that coach, and he had told me, I hate that player. Like,
Yeah, I hate that. I hated working
just
with that player.
right?
Yeah.
Like Frank Reich might not feel really good about Carson Wentz. Like it didn't end very well.
And you're not
with the
reporting
Colts.
that. You're just saying.
I'm not reporting that.
Yeah,
I'm
you're
just
not
saying
reporting that. Just
maybe,
yeah.
maybe, I don't know how he feels about Jacoby Brissett. Like, oh, they were together in what was it, like 2019 or something? He's with
Yeah.
Jacoby Brissett. Like we play this like connect the dots game all the time, and it's I get it. I get why people do it, but it oftentimes does not work out that way. So I would just, he might he might really like another quarterback out there that he's never coached before, and that could be. But I think he'll have say, right? One interesting thing I saw this morning about the Super Bowl, and it sort of piqued my interest because of the Glenn, Glenn calling the defense. And the setup is, I think Mike Sando from the Athletic, he came up with this that there's been no coach who's ever won the Super Bowl that called the defense, and
I
that
saw
and
that
then
too. Crazy.
that was amazing. And then somebody else, I can't, somebody who covers the Seahawks, I think, talked to Leslie Frazier. I can't remember who it was. So I saw they tweeted a quote because Leslie Frazier called the defense, in Minnesota, was a head coach, and he talked about how hard it is to manage the game when you're calling the defense because the timeout stuff and the challenges and that often comes on offense, and time management often comes when you're on offense, and if you're an offensive play caller, you're kind of focused on that stuff. But if you're a defensive play caller, you might be going over like the next series or something, or trying to figure out what happened on last series, and you're not maybe 100% thinking about the game management. So that was an interesting, fast. I'd like to check some of it because like I don't know how far the data goes back. Like there had to be people calling defenses
I mean,
that won Super Bowls in the set. Like Tom Landry, didn't Tom Landry call defense? Like so that, but it
Belichick
is an
had
interesting
huge
point.
influence on play calling and defense too. I know he wasn't the designated
He
play
did,
caller,
he
but like
did.
in the Super Bowl, you could tell he was calling
Yeah,
some of those plays.
yeah,
Like,
yeah. Goal line, he called the Malcolm Butler. We see it
yeah,
everywhere right now. Going, yeah, but it's an interesting point, and I do remember Rex. One of the problems Rex would run into sometimes is he didn't know what was going on with the offense because he was coaching the defense. Famously, there was a preseason game where Sanchez threw a pick six, and after the game, we asked Rex about it, and he said he didn't see it because he was talking to the
Oh yeah, I
defense.
remember
yeah,
that.
And
that's right.
he got crushed for it. He was not happy. He got crushed for that. So, but yeah, so it's just an interesting point about the setup in general, Ryan. When I saw that, I was thinking about.
Well, Aaron Glenn certainly has his hands full, considering he is now going to be calling the defensive plays, even with the hire of Duker as his new defense coordinator, who's inexperienced in terms of calling defensive plays. But look, I mean, I think this brings up an interesting point, Kaz, because it's been a wild, 8 to 9 days now with the Jets in terms of reshaping this staff. There's been a ton of turnover, a lot of assistant coaches have been let go, including the offensive and defensive coordinator. We've seen the history. It's really only Hugh Jackson who's fired an OC in DC going into his second season after his first year. It's not a good history for Aaron Glenn to be on, but I gotta revisit this thing because I'm interested to hear you before we get back to the Reich stuff. The not Marty Morningwig, sorry, the Wink Martindale saga. Like, can you
Mm.
just lay this out for me? Because I think there's just a ton of noise around it still in terms of Aaron Glenn wanting to hire him. Did he actually want to hire him? Was he going to let him call plays, or was Glenn always going to want to call plays? Woody Johnson's involvement now, the rumors now, and by the way, the ridiculousness of yesterday we can get to also about Darren Mougey telling people and staff. I can't believe how ridiculous some of these things have been that we've seen with the Jets. But I think that's just par for the course right now, Kaz, with the Jets being in the position that they're in right now.
Yeah, so I didn't see everything yesterday. I was busy out here. I saw bits and pieces of it. I think you're referring to Sean Marash, FAN. So there's lots of talk right now about the Jets, and there's lots of rumors. And here's the tough part of I think being a reporter, and I think now as people kind of step into that space a little more, as the media landscape has changed, that maybe aren't classically trained. There could be like three different story sides to a story sometimes, and I heard the rumor about Woody Johnson. I think everyone on the beat has heard that rumor. Um, but I think that's coming from outside the building. I think that's coming from like a coaching perspective, and I think a lot of coaches are talking about that. Here's what I've been told by a few people I trust, some people inside the Jets, some people outside the Jets, is there was a meeting in West Palm. They have their organizational meetings every year in West Palm at Woody's house. That was like a couple weeks ago before Wink was here. They kicked everything around in those meetings, and it was like proposed in that meeting, like, what about you calling the defense?
Mm.
I don't think he was ordered to. I don't think he was told he couldn't hire Wink Martindale. I think it was put out there like, have you thought about it? And something I asked him in December. And I think Glenn got there. Um, How much Woody had influence on that is debatable. And I go back, I talked to Eric Mangini in the summer. I did a story about the challenges for coaches their first time as head coaches. And Mangini said one of the hardest things is managing the owner. And basically, you never do that to your head coach. You don't have much interaction with the owner as a coordinator or a position coach. It's usually just cordial. But now you're the head coach, and one of the things that Mangini said to me, and this rings true. This he goes, "You're never quite sure if it's an order or a suggestion when it comes from the owner, because if he tells you something and you don't do it, you could and then you could get fired. So it's like you're, but then if you do it, he's not going to take the blame. So it's a tricky thing. So I do think there was a role here. I think Woody played a role. But I don't think he came down and said, no, you can't hire this guy. You got to do this. You got to do this. I think Woody suggested some things to Aaron Glenn and maybe brought them up. And it's up to interpretation how that went, that far that went. I do know, they talked about some things with Wink Martindale, some different setups, kind of sharing duties, and I don't think that worked for Wink either. So they moved on. But yeah, the Mougey stuff, I I really didn't see much of that. I heard a little bit about it. But I do know he was not at the Senior Bowl. So I think
Right.
the original stuff was he was at the Senior Bowl. Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
he didn't go. I think the weather played a role in him not going, as well as the coaching stuff going on at the same time. I think he just decided to prioritize that than going to the Senior Bowl, but he wasn't there. So, and I think that's another, like, I hear stuff all like people. I heard stuff an hour ago. People told
Yeah.
me, oh, they hear this about the Jets. They hear this is going on. You got to be careful. It's hearsay, right? Like you don't like it could be true, but it might not be. It's tricky to report that stuff, man. Like I'm probably conservative when it comes to that stuff. Um, but I can't imagine Darren Mougey's out there trashing his boss. That doesn't, and I don't know him that well yet, but what I do know of him, that's not really his style.
Yeah, you see it cause everywhere, man. Like I'm not a reporter by any stretch of the imagination, right? I do sports media. I'm a fan, and I make content. You see a lot of people trying to connect dots and report on it as if they have some insight or some access to information that you guys and the real media doesn't have, and that happens all the time. And I'm not saying in this particular situation that's what happened, but it seems like people like to connect dots, report on it, and then get that wow reaction out of people, which leads to clicks, etc. But following up on just something with Woody Johnson, we were all concerned about him meddling too much the last couple of years. That was basically what the Athletic had come out with as
Yeah.
their main topic at hand there. Are you getting the sense that after this past season, which was an utter disaster,
Yeah.
are you getting the sense that Woody's getting a little bit more involved?
Look, I I know Woody was annoyed at the way the season ended. Wasn't thrilled with that. I've heard that from people, but meddling is a tricky word as the owner. To
Yeah,
me,
it's your
meddling
team.
is meddling is, hey, I want you to take this quarterback instead of the guy you want, right? Like if Aaron Glenn and Darren Mougey and Frank Reich come back and say, hey, Woody, we really love this guy. We're going to draft him 16th. And Woody says, no, not that guy. I want you to take the other guy. Like that to me is overstepping the line as an owner. Be telling your head coach if he told them like I think you should consider calling plays. I'm not sure that's meddling. I'm not like he is the boss. Like
Yeah,
he's allowed
right.
to have suggestions about the way the team is run. I think player personnel decisions to me is where things get tricky. And if he's when we he wanted Brett Favre, and there was resistance from Eric Mangini about Brett Favre, and he kind of just said he's coming. Or Tebow is debatable how much of his role was in Tebow, but there's been times through the years where Woody's gotten involved in player personnel, and I think that's where it gets tricky to me. But him giving coaches and like giving not X's and O's, but the way the team is run, I think it's fair game as an owner. I think it's just because it's Woody, we would crush him.
Yeah, and we're
Right.
losing, and that always makes everything worse.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Yeah.
The end result is what matters, and it just hasn't been good. And look, I agree to you. I agree with you, Kaz, about the owner can say to the coach, I think you're better off serving yourself as calling the plays. But you just brought up a great point about the note about head coaches calling defensive plays. I wonder if that's even something that's in Woody's mind when he like if he were to
Woody,
say
if
something
Woody
like
saw
that.
that tweet today, he might tell him, "Hey, you're not calling the
You're
plays
not
anymore."
calling plays. Hey,
Look, if we're at a point where we're worried about Aaron Glenn winning the Super Bowl because of
yeah.
calling plays, those are caviar problems for the Jets.
That's for sure. Well, I think you brought up another interesting point. Again, we go back to the influence from Reich on the quarterback decision. Like you said, it's a little early to say Brissett and Wentz and previous connections with this guy. But I think you can definitely draw on the prototypical quarterbacks that Reich has coached before,
Yeah,
and maybe like who he's worked with. So I wonder, Kirk Cousins' name is definitely an interesting one because I know there is an interesting thing that Frankie, I want you to bring up this note that I thought was pretty interesting about Kirk Cousins leading the biggest comeback in NFL playoff history. And Reich actually reached out to Kirk Cousins. This is a cool thing. Frankie, can you tell more Kaz about this?
Yeah, no, Frank Reich originally had the biggest comeback in NFL history. That was
over
his
the
sort of
Oilers.
thing.
Yeah, over the
Yep,
Oilers.
against the
I'm
Oilers.
old enough to have watched that game.
Wow. Whoa. I was actually alive during that game. Ryan wasn't.
No,
I
I
was
was
alive,
not.
Ryan. Okay, 92. I was 4 years old. But yeah, he was Jim Kelly's backup. He
Yep.
owned that. It's still actually the biggest comeback in playoff history, just not in
Sorry, playoff history. Yes, yes, yes. Yes.
Yeah.
yeah. Well, it was both. And now when Kirk Cousins and the Vikings passed that because they came back from 33, whereas Reich and the Bills came back from 32, he reached out, Frank Reich, to Kirk Cousins. He goes, you know what? This is something that I'm proud that a man of faith like yourself actually broke my record. And I love that record, by the way, but I'm glad that, someone like
Yeah.
you did. And apparently they've built a little bit of a connection because of that text that Frank had sent out to Kirk, and they share a lot of the same kind of faith, and people are assuming that they've kept in contact throughout, the years due to that. So little
This
tidbit.
was that when the Vikings beat the Colts?
That was no, yes, it was when
Yeah,
the
so
Vikings beat the
that's
Colts. Yeah,
when
so
Jeff
that's another
Saturday
connection.
Jeff
Yeah.
Saturday replaced Frank Reich as the coach, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
So that may have
Yep.
played a role in that text as well.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. I think it's ultimately going to come down to what does he think of him as a football player? Like, right? Like he
Yeah.
might like the guy, but like it's really it's going to be about the evaluations in the room and what they think of him, So, and I guess too, he's Atlanta. It's not a certainty he's going to be gone from Atlanta, Kirk Cousins, right? He's still under contract. I know they reworked the deal,
Yeah.
but now Stefanski's there. Does he keep him? I don't know what Penix's status is health wise.
Yeah, I'll
Yeah.
say this about I just want to say something about Frank Reich really quick. If you go through the kind of schemes that he wants to run, and I sent them to Ryan, they're pretty complex here. This isn't an easy scheme for a quarterback. He likes this thing called, I don't know, Ryan, if you want me to get into it
Yeah,
really
yeah.
quick, but he likes these thing called conflict creation. He wants to put defenders in a bind where every choice they make is wrong. That plays off the RPO. So if, the safeties are coming up, pull it and throw it
Yeah.
over their head. If they're dropping back, we're going to run it or throw it underneath. He's a big outside zone run schemer, which actually plays maybe into Brees Hall's
Yeah.
potential evolution here. And Jonathan Taylor had huge years with Frank Reich. So there's that connection. He loves mesh concepts, and he loves to utilize his tight ends in these sort of mesh concepts and these triangle reads, he calls them, where you flood three receivers, could be a tight end also, in these certain depths, and depending upon where that defender is, you're getting the ball out quick. The other thing with Frank Reich, his system's very dependent on time in the pocket. And when he actually took over in Indianapolis for Andrew Luck, what would then have been his last year in
Yeah.
2018, Andrew Luck had arguably his best season. Not totals and touchdowns, but if you look at all the metrics, he had his highest completion percentage, almost 5,000 yards, 39 touchdowns, his highest QBR. But Luck didn't have enough time in the pocket, and it sort of, affected what Frank could do with Andrew. And, just going into a little bit of the backstory there, they, luck was done, and it was a shock to Reich. But to his credit, he performed well after with the quarterbacks at hand. I mean, Jacoby Brissett had a solid year. Phillip Rivers threw for over 4,000 yards with him. Wentz had his best last year in the league, and then things fell off a cliff a little bit with Matt Ryan. But really good coach. I mean, can't hate on him at all. I just don't like that he's gonna be here for maybe 2 years. But
Well, I think that's the big question, right? Like, how long does this last? And, Kaz, I wonder, Glenn, he's going into this year. Do you believe he's on the hot seat going into this year? Like, he has to show obviously an improvement from this last year in terms of wins, I would say.
He better be. He better be on the hot seat. 3-14, right? Like, yeah.
Kaz is putting him on the hot
well,
seat.
You can't have another year like that. No, I mean, Woody's not gonna. There's no way Woody's
really
gonna go for another
he won't
season like that.
Another tanking season.
What if it's
Glenn?
5 or 6 wins, Kaz?
Have to know how it looks. Do they have a quarterback that they feel good about? Is it they start 5-3 and lose the rest of their games? Is it they win their last 4 games? Then it's going to be how it looks to me. And is the arrow pointing up? Can he make that case that then maybe he stays? But no, he can't be 3-14 again.
So I wonder, and this is something I was going to play for you guys. Have you guys listened to Boomer Esiason this morning on what he actually had dinner with Frank Reich last night? And obviously they were roommates in Maryland. They go back a long ways. Have you guys heard what he said, his conversation with Frank Reich on the Jets offensive pieces as it currently stands before he was offered the role?
I think I will say, sitting there with Frank last night, he does not buy into any negativity whatsoever. He's just not a negative person. He's a complete optimist, and he's somebody who believes very much in what he can do. And if he does get this job, he can really be have a profound impact on an offense that he believes that there are a lot of really good players here already. He does. The offensive line coach, Steve Heiden, worked with Ben Johnson. He loves that because, Frank thinks that Ben Johnson has one of the best offensive minds in all of football. And I think I've told you this over the years. When he was with the Detroit Lions, Frank used to tell me that he was doing things with Jared Goff that nobody really even thought about in the NFL. And that's the kind of thing that, Frank really appreciated from the offensive standpoint. And the fact that Steve Heiden, who was a former tight end himself in the NFL, is the offensive line coach, I think is a very, very attractive aspect to this job that people don't understand.
So, Kaz, can you talk more about, is that just, him saying, hey, I'm really excited about, potentially working for the Jets, so of course I'm going to be really excited about the pieces here? Or is there actual credibility to Frank Reich believing in what the Jets might have pieces-wise on the offensive side of the ball?
The Steve Heiden part is interesting to me. That's kind of unique. That's different. The terms of not buying into the negativity and feeling good about, I've heard that from every coach who's come through here for 15 years, right? I joke about the head coaches if they always have a moment when they become the Jets head coach, when you see the optimism zapped from their eyes. I remember with Saleh, he was all, well, we're gonna do this, and this, and then they lost 54-13 in New England, and he looked like he had aged 10 years when he walked in the room, and he just looked shell shocked, And so they all have that moment as a coach, and so yeah, I appreciate that he's optimistic, but they all are optimistic coming in the door. The Heiden thing though, that's different. That's I think that's probably real, and that's good that he feels positively about him. And I thought Heiden did a good job this year. I thought the offensive line performed well and looked like they knew what they were doing. So that's a positive.
Yeah, look, Heiden's one of the few assistants that's coming back this year for the Jets. Ultimately, guys, again, this comes down to what they do at quarterback. I wonder, Frankie, for you, you just highlighted a lot of Reich's experience working with veteran quarterbacks, guys who have been in the league for a couple of years at least, or really experienced quarterbacks. The one time they actually pick a top pick in Bryce Young, it didn't go well. Obviously, that's a disaster of a situation with the owner down there. Pulled the trigger quickly on him. They started 1-10. That has to play a factor in here. But are you concerned at all that Frank Reich doesn't have that experience of developing a young rookie quarterback or a young prospect quarterback into being a viable starting option?
Yes, but back to the conversation that we had a little earlier. How long is he going to be here? So,
Okay.
what Kaz was saying, screw it. If you're going to go the bridge route, go the bridge route. And he might, again, raise that floor for you. He is a stabilizer for this offense for sure. I think we can confidently say that he'll bring that variable to the table, whereas you really didn't know what you were going to get with Tanner, even in year two. They're going to look at, obviously, the free agent market. They have to. They're not in such an advantageous position because there's only one quarterback in this draft that you can look at as being someone you can depend on to start in year one or even year two. You want to talk about Ty Simpson and Garrett Nussmeier, who had a really good Senior Bowl. There's just nothing else really there that you could hang your hat on. I'm sure they're going to draft a quarterback. I don't think they'll do it as early as some are suggesting, just because I'm not getting that vibe. But I think they're going to look at free agency. They're going to look at the Malik Willis's, Jacoby Brissett. Not anyone that we're going to get too excited about. We'll see what happens with Cousins, Marcus Mariota. People have thrown out there.
Oh boy.
And then we're getting your favorite quarterback, right?
I
didn't want to bring it up,
this.
Kaz.
I feel it coming.
Ryan's having a tough week.
Ryan.
He said it's a lot of stuff going on, and it's cold. I don't want to bring it up.
I don't know. You could feel it. You could feel it coming, right? I don't know. I don't have any information about this, but I just feel like it's coming.
Wouldn't that come into the quote unquote meddling owner saying I want to splash, and there's Kyler just waiting out there?
No, not that. I think it comes into. I think it's funny. I had a conversation. I was at Patriots this morning, and I was talking to one of their coaches that I know, who's on the defensive side of the ball, and he was like, "Man, I thought Fields." He's like, "I was right there with him on Fields." And I'm like, yeah, it's because you're a defensive coach. And I'm like, you hated going against him, right? I mean, he goes, yeah. He goes, I absolutely hated going against the guy. And he's like, I thought, why can't this guy get it right? Like, there's so much talent there. It's going to click at some point with him. He's like, I thought the Jets were on to something there. Defensive coaches, that's like, they love guys like Justin Fields or Kyler that just challenge their rules and can run around. And I don't know, I could just see Aaron Glenn going, yeah. Let's get that guy. And look, the options aren't out there. There's not a lot of good options out there. So again, maybe they decide it's the best of a lot of bad options. He was a number one overall pick, so his talent is a lot higher than some of the other guys that are out there.
Ryan, can I also say something? I'm going to try to convince you really fast on Kyler Murray. Ready? Year two, right? Kyler Murray, if you look at his numbers, Ryan, he had 3,971 yards, 67.2% completion, 26 touchdowns, and he added 11 rushing touchdowns and 819 rushing yards. He'd be the best quarterback we've ever had if he has a year like that here, Ryan.
It's a low bar. Again, I hate that argument. It's such a low bar for any quarterback to come in here and say, this will be the best Jets quarterback. Listen, guys, Ryan Fitzpatrick threw for the most passing yards and touchdowns in Jets history. Like, what are we talking about here? Like, this is such an abysmal, disastrous history of quarterback play for the New York Jets. So if you brought Kyler Murray in here, he'd immediately be the best quarterback they've ever had in terms of stats that they want to put out there. But I'm going to again go to the guy has never won squat here in the NFL. He's being basically run out of town in Arizona. I don't think LaFleur, by the way, is going to just ship him out. He might like him as a quarterback too, just to see if he can make something happen there for a year. So I wouldn't exactly buy the Kyler Murray trade hype there. But again, this is a guy who has not won anything. His teammates, and there's a reason why there's a stigma around him. Kyler Murray is disinterested in winning this season if new Call of Duty game comes out. So there's a reason why that stigma's around there. He just doesn't have the on-field buy-in that I would want from my quarterback. I think the Jets desperately need now with Frankie, and I think it's a good point, bringing in a stabilizer on the offensive side of the ball, a guy who's a veteran, who's been around the league for a long time, can give them actual credibility in offense and say, let's bring in a guy who can control the locker room, command the respect, get Garrett Wilson back involved in the game plan for Christ's sake, and get Breece Hall the ball both on the ground and pass game if they bring him back. And let's see where we can go with this.
And Mason Taylor, too.
And Mason Taylor.
Frank Reich loves using his tight end, so you got to develop that kid. And you develop him by throwing him the football, right?
I just think you're rolling the dice again with Kyler Murray. Like, yes, Kaz, you're right. the talent is tantalizing. It's the same crap we said about Justin Fields, though. It's like,
Yeah.
let's roll the dice and see if we can make this work. I'm sorry, the Jets are out of dice rolls right now. Like they need, in my opinion, something that's more stable, something that can give them an actual chance to be
But who's that
competitive.
guy? Who are you describing?
It's Kirk Cousins. It's Jacoby Brissett. It's Mac Jones. It's those three guys, in my
None of
opinion.
those guys are free agents, though.
Right, but you're going to have to give up assets if you want to be stable as a franchise for at least one season with the bridge option we're talking about here. I don't think Kyler Murray brings a stable situation here. I think your ceiling ultimately is probably going to be 6 or 7 wins, and that puts you in the conversation of being out of the top pick for next year.
Ryan, what are they going to do though at quarterback? I'm with you for the most part. I'm actually with you. I think you're underplaying Kyler a little bit when you're comparing him to Justin Fields. I don't think they're in the same stratosphere as in terms of.
I'm not saying in the
play.
same stratosphere, but I'm saying it's the talent role. It's the talent role. Like this guy is so special athletic wise. Like, but also let's not forget he's undersized. He's often injured. And Frank Reich just dealt with an undersized quarterback that was getting banged up a bunch. And Bryce Young, that's the reason he got run out of town. So I don't know if he's willing to go down that route again and say, yeah, let's bring in another undersized quarterback who I just don't know if it's going to work with his system that you're talking about, Frankie.
I agree with you on that. I do. I'm just saying, Ryan, we're out of options. I mean, you're where are you gonna? They're gonna want to bring in somebody that could play the position at least to to an average level, if that's even possible. But where are you gonna go? I mean, they're probably gonna. I'm sure. I mean, Kaz, I'm sure you might know something about this. I'm sure they're gonna call Vegas to see if that first overall pick's available at all. But if you're not doing that, good luck, right?
You know what?
I mean,
This is might interest people. I did some reporting last week on the Darnold trade, right?
Yeah.
So I was talking to people. The Jets tried to move up to number 1
Wow.
in 2021, right? When they traded Darnold. They tried to move up to number 1 with the Jaguars.
Wow.
But yeah, the Jaguars asked for a ton. Let me
3 ones.
I think that's what it was. I think it was 3 ones, and they weren't even going to guarantee it was going to. They wanted 3 ones in addition to the 2021 swap.
So
3 more ones, and they still weren't sure they would do it, even if the Jets agreed.
Yeah, and look, Frankie, like Trevor Lawrence was much more highly touted as a quarterback prospect than
100%.
Fernando Mendoza was.
Yeah.
So,
that's the price you're talking about.
I'll say this: people are saying this. This isn't being reported by anybody really, but it's like a rumor going around. Vegas may want to look at a quarterback like a Joe Burrow or someone sort of flashy.
Why would the Jets not be on?
Yeah, the Bengals are not trading Joe Burrow.
Yeah,
I know that. They're not, but I'm saying like Vegas may do a move like that. People are speculating like maybe they want to go and Tom Brady's a very charismatic guy. Maybe he can convince an owner to make a trade with him.
Convince an owner, convince a GM, hey, trade your star quarterback away. Come on.
Hey, I mean, listen. I'll say this. Yes, it sounds ridiculous, but there's a lot more player mobility now than there's ever been.
Yes, I agree with it.
And teams trade and do things with quarterbacks too now, which
the Bengals are a different team though.
Yeah.
I think they operate a different way than everybody else.
When Kaz brought up the Carson Palmer thing, man, it's 100% right. Like the Bengals, Mike Brown, Mike Brown or Paul Brown?
Mike Brown. Paul Brown was his father.
Paul Brown was his father, but they operate different.
Yeah, and look, they stared down Trey Hendrickson last year. Not a quarterback, but their best defensive player, and he wanted to trade, and they called his bluff on that. So they're a different organization.
The one thing I want to wrap up with, Kaz, is I saw some stuff about could they potentially bring in a Greg Roman or a Darren Bevel to Frank Reich's staff? Do you think that is even a possibility, or is this going to be just a bunch of no names that we really haven't heard of to fill out the rest of the coaching staff?
I haven't heard anything like substantial like that's real. Like I know that's been talked about. It doesn't make much sense to me. I don't see why Greg Roman or Darren Bevel would want to do that, unless they feel like they just have no other options. But it also feels like a bad idea to me. Like it's just arranged marriages usually don't work in the NFL.
Yeah, it's weird too if you're interviewing three guys for the OC position and then you hire one, you can't assume the other one's going to be the pass game coordinator.
Yeah,
What's like that's a perfect
that's
world. I would love that, but
that's
that's I've never seen that. Like we don't really
yeah,
see
yeah.
that. That
That's
never
also a
happens.
lot of money. Like
Totally.
Darrell
Yeah.
Bevell's an expensive passing game coordinator. Greg Roman's an expensive run game coordinator. Like
Yeah.
I'm, I don't see that happening.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see how they felt the rest of their staff. And then, we're going to continue to discuss this quarterback options as we learn more as the weeks go on. But Kaz, enjoy the Super Bowl. I'm sure you'll have fun out there in Santa Clara, continuing to be bussed around everywhere.
I got to
And
see Morgan Moses today.
hey,
Oh, nice.
Yeah. He was asked about joining the Patriots at their, they were only 4-13, and they were like, were you worried about that? And he looked at the person asking the question and goes, "Do you know where I played last year?" Just Jets taking strays at the Super Bowl. And I saw Todd Downing. We had a nice
Oh.
chat. Yeah, Todd Downing. Yep, he's here with the Patriots. Tony Dews, the running back coach, here with the Patriots from lots of 2024 Jets. I did not see Leonard Taylor because I guess he's on the practice squad, and practice squad guys were not made available to us. So, but yeah, Leonard Taylor's here. Taste of the 2024 Jets at the Super Bowl.
Leonard Taylor may have sent the Patriots to the Super Bowl, by the
Yeah,
way. This is where I say the joke keeps getting sicker by the minute. It's just it is. It's like you can't make it up. Darnold's in the Super Bowl. Leonard Taylor sent the Patriots there.
You should hear these
Vrabel
guys
was
talk
our
about.
guy, huh?
You should hear these guys talk about Morgan Moses too. Like they just Vrabel was asked like a generic question about like what it would mean to him to win the Super Bowl, and he talked about how much it would mean to him to see Morgan Moses win the Super Bowl. That was his
Wow,
answer. And like how like everyone just says like he was a super guy with the Jets,
yeah.
and he had a huge influence on Olu and Tippmann. Even John Simpson talks about how he taught him a lot. So it's not a surprise, but I mean he's like it's not like you're asking questions about Morgan Moses. People bring him up as like how great he was. And I
interesting.
asked Downing like, did you go to bat for him? And he said I stood on the table for him. And he was like he goes I absolutely because of the experience with the Jets. So
Crazy.
He was I liked Morgan Moses, brought a nice attitude to the offense that was seemed to be
Totally.
lacking there a little bit. I think Frankie wants to ask you a question here, Kaz.
oh boy, trivia
Oh,
question.
Yeah, yeah. No, not a trivia question. I want to get your opinion on something. I'll be honest, I'm in the minority here, and I hate being this much of a hater, but I'm gonna be a hater right now. Sorry, Sam Darnold. I don't want to see you win a Super Bowl. I'd rather the Patriots win yeah, I don't want to deal with it. Listen, the Patriots have won enough Super Bowls, in my opinion. They have 6. They're gonna get whatever. They're gonna get 7. That's the most. I don't really
Yeah.
care. We've
Don't
seen
get
them.
7.
I don't want to go to sleep at night knowing that the guy that we drafted was the Super Bowl MVP, and we have to deal with it forever. I don't want to deal with that smoke, and I think Jeff fans are mistaken saying that they want to see Darnold win a Super Bowl. No hate on Sam; he's a great person. I'm happy for him, but I don't want to see him win the Super Bowl. Just throwing
Do
that
you
out there.
find these Patriots unlikable, Frankie, or not? Because it seems like there's not much that's unlikable about them, but obviously they're the Patriots and you're a Jets fan.
Yeah, I mean, listen, the Vrabel can be a little bit of a prick and
I love
dig.
Vrabel.
I love them too. I like those guys, but like they're more likable than past teams. I'll say that for sure.
I can't stand Josh
But,
McDaniels.
Yeah,
I think
was
that
gonna
guy's
say
a
Josh
total
McDaniels. It's
D
like
word.
they still got that Boston about them that I don't like. I'm not gonna
Ooh,
lie, but
he is so good with the media,
he
Vrabel.
is. I
Like
know he
it's
is. He's great.
incredible. He got, there's a lot of questions at the Super Bowl that are different. I'm gonna be nice. They're just different questions. And someone asked
They're
him
dumb.
today.
I'll be mean. They're dumb,
Someone
Kaz.
asked him today about the game in Denver and whether the placement of where they were on the field influenced the play calling based on how much snow there was on the field versus how chewed the field. And when this person asks this question, like you're like, oh man, this could be ugly. Like,
They could end well.
and he made a joke. Like he
Uh,
goes, we're good, we're good, we're not that good though. Like and it was like, man, that's the perfect answer. Like that is the perfect answer because he didn't make the person feel dumb. And sometimes the questions you hear at the Super Bowl are people from other countries that don't fully understand football, and this is their second language. And if you put me in another country to ask about a sport I didn't know much about and I didn't speak the language, I would ask bad questions too. So, but he did like diffuse the question, made a joke out of it, and it was perfect. I'm like, man, he is just good. He's just really, 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 really. I mean, and that's low on the priority list I get, but he's impressive with how he deals with the media.
We need a coach like that, guys. I think we need someone that's personable with
And
everyone.
Vrabel,
That's huh?
I just poured the Jets. Let's just look at Vrabel.
I know.
Like he's the one that got away. Like for the they wanted him bad, and yeah, it's just how that worked out was
It's
just
crazy,
rough.
cause he was at a football. I remember going to the combine in Indy and seeing him at a restaurant, and I talked to him for a few minutes. He's an awesome guy. He's just so cool. He gives you the time
Yeah,
of day. I mean, he's just a nice person, but he's tough. And yeah, I think he would have fit perfectly here. But
yeah, he strikes a nice balance between
yeah,
players coach and authoritarian, which is tough to do.
yeah.
That's a
You
show, guys.
depressed yet, Ryan? You depressed?
I mean,
We're getting all sad.
I have zero hope for this franchise right now. Zero.
Are you rooting for Sam Darnold, Ryan?
Absolutely. I love Sam. I love Sam.
You don't
I
think
would,
that's gonna hit a little weird though if he wins the Super Bowl? I'm telling you, that's gonna hit. It's gonna hit more than you think it is.
no, it won't.
People
You
are
want
like,
to know
oh
why?
yeah,
No, no.
yeah.
Here's the thing. I look at this Jets franchise differently, I think, than most Jets fans, where Frankie, you know me, I hold them accountable. They welcome all the pain that they bring to themselves. So I have zero sympathy for the Jets. I really do. They screwed this situation up. And mind you, I was one of those people because I was working at ESPN during that draft with Zach Wilson. I was like, hand up. I bought into the Zach Wilson hype. I was getting too much in the weeds. Like, this is next Patrick Mahomes, blah, 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 blah. Like, I was on me. And I threw Sam away like he was trash, and I shouldn't have. But at the same time, I think Kaz also brings me to a point where think about this differently, Ryan. It's like you can't wait that long for a quarterback to develop. Sam was never going to develop here because
Yeah, he's right.
the Jets didn't have the patience to be able to stick with that. Should they have given him another year? Probably. Yes. But that's hindsight and that's 2020 and that's always perfect vision. Like they did what they had to do. They're in the current situation right now because they just can't draft and develop a quarterback. Like that's point blank. They have, and that goes back to everything we talked about here. The Jets have never shown an ability to draft and develop. So when Sam goes on and is having this awesome moment, hell yes, I'm rooting for him because now that's also like, damn man, like yeah, we could have had that, but like no, we're never gonna have that moment. So I have zero hope for this franchise until they can prove us wrong that they can develop a quarterback, Frankie and Kaz. Of course, I'm going to doubt them. Like of course I'm going to have my doubts about them. So yeah,
I'll say this with Sam. After his stint with us, we have to realize like he went to a few different places that had quality offensive minds there. Carolina had Joe Brady as their OC that year. He went with Kyle Shanahan. He went with KOC. He was right there for these guys. And it's not like they didn't feel like maybe he had enough to keep him. Maybe Brady didn't have that effect necessarily or that pull there. But I don't know. But again, Ryan, it's gonna hit bad if I'm telling you.
for you, not for me. I'm going to root for Sam, and I'm rooting for Sam. Kaz.
I'm
Just
not.
give me a heads up.
Kaz,
Do you
what
have a
think
prediction yet
about,
for Kaz for the game?
Well, I was
I
gonna
haven't
ask
made my
Kaz.
prediction yet. I've not made my prediction yet. I'm leaning Patriots actually because
Mm.
but
So
I've
am I.
spent a lot more time around the Patriots, so it's tough for me. I've seen them up close and they've got a nice little mojo about them. They've got it going on. But I'm sure that I haven't been around the Seahawks, so I might feel that way from around them too. But yeah, I don't know. I'm leaning Patriots. I have
I
been
don't
terrible picking games in the playoffs. So
really.
yeah, I haven't done well.
Yeah, this has been a tough year too, overall. I'll say this. I think the Pats haven't been playing so well the last couple games. They've played against really good defenses. I think they're kind of due Ryan and Kaz for a little bit of of a a good game, especially on offense. But I love them getting 4.5 points. I think even if Seattle wins, I think they'll win by
Yeah.
3. So I like the spread, them getting 4.5 a ton. I think that's a good bet overall. But I've said that on this show how many times, and I've been wrong. So do not take my betting advice.
Well, we did. We hit on,
Kaz's or Ryan's, not mine.
we hit on Frank Reich. We hit on the offense. We hit on the dysfunction around the Jets. We talked about Aaron Glenn calling defensive plays, Woody Johnson, and then we hit on quarterback options. And then we got the Super Bowl. What else can you want from a Jets show? And gang's all here. Kaz, we appreciate you always for your coverage. We're looking forward to seeing you throughout the weekend and covering the Super Bowl. Until next time, Jets fans, hit that like, hit that subscribe button, and we'll catch you next time.